Thank you very much, Susie, for your fascinating talk. Now for our next talk on the topic of entrepreneurship, I'm delighted to introduce our moderator for this session, Dr. Rebecca Gonzalez Suarez. Rebecca graduated from the University of Cantabria in 2010 with a thesis on Higgs boson searches at the CMS experiment. In 2018, she moved to Uppsala University in Sweden, joining the Atlas collaboration. She now teaches modern physics to undergrad students, and with more than 10 years of public engagement experience, she was elected outreach coordinator of the Atlas collaboration in 2020. And within this role, she has been in charge of the Atlas-wide education, communication, and outreach program since March 2021. Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thank you very, very much for the introduction. So I'm here indeed to be your moderator for the next talk. And the next speaker's name is Tomas Sluka. Tomas is the CEO and co-founder of CREAL, a Lausanne-based startup that develops and commercializes light field display technology for virtual and augmented reality. Tomas became an entrepreneur after 15 years doing research and more than 50 scientific publications. He has a PhD in science engineering and has done control system engineering for the pixel detector in Atlas and also things like materials research at EPFL. Via entrepreneurship, he could use his technical knowledge to solve one of the key roadblocks for having a natural experience in virtual and augmented reality. So Tomas will have a 20-minute talk, and it will be followed, of course, by a 10 minutes Q&A. So please put your questions in the chat, and we will try to ask him as many as possible. So thank you very much, and Tomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. First of all, I should maybe say it's a big honor for me to be invited to speak as someone who should have something interesting to say about the life after CERN, and also what's the role of the CERN experience in building a startup on augmented reality, and what's the potential impact on the society in general. And the title was actually this one, From the Atlas Experiment to Improving the Augmented Reality. And I guess everybody may put a question, what does it have to do together? Well, directly, not much. I had to completely change the field by 180 degrees. And the title could be easily From Atlas Experiment to something completely different. But it doesn't mean that the experience doesn't have impact on it. In fact, it has a huge impact. So the underlying message I would like to say is that, in fact, being at CERN was a great start to possibly any future, because you get value in in different forms. So you improve your skill, you prove your skill, you get a network, you get a credibility, and you get also confidence, because once you see that what was possible to build with a group of people, you can just say that, okay, I saw building probably the most sophisticated device ever built by people, and that's the value on its own. So maybe to put it from my perspective, just to understand who I was, I am a 100% a techie guy who was fascinated by science and technology since ever. I read possibly all the popular science books, like Susie was promoting in the last talk. And I studied science engineering, which is, let's say, the practical part of the research, in a small provincial university in the Czech Republic, in Technical University of Liberec. And I saw my future in the research. I still think this is the most important human activity, and civilization depends on it. But I saw it also from the perspective that research career means some kind of a sacrifice of material comfort for the sake of doing what you really like. And then you can imagine that one day I was sitting in the office, and you hear a distant voice of your colleague, how he's speaking about the Atlas Pixel group in the Prague, and that they need new people for the experiment. So I immediately grabbed his hand, contacted the head of the group, and in a couple of months, indeed after I finished my stage in Japan, I was here. And for me, it was like over exceeding the dreams too early. So I will show you a few nostalgic photos because no one has ever seen them. I took them and keep them for myself. So this is a photo from the center of the Atlas detector. This is from kind of another day when you could, when the toroidal magnet was being installed. And I was one of the few people which was quite regularly entering the detector and creeping to the center to test the installations and debug the installations, often every day. So this is how you get inside, and here you can see the actual hellhole where the Atlas pixel or inner detector is installed around the interaction point. So at that time, and this time, the detector was still outside on the surface. And second year, I also contributed to the detector control system software. So I built several control panels and also did the supervision tool, which is taking care of the clients and servers of the detector control system. And so I was there during the two, I think, hottest years in 2007, 2008, because both these years were already delayed. And I touched vast range of hardware and software, proved that, to myself, that my skills are certainly sufficient for something so amazing. And very importantly, I experienced organization of so complex project, which is extremely important for building a startup several years later. So when the detector was basically finished, I moved to EPFL in Lausanne to work yet again on completely different projects, this time in material science. And again, vast range of projects, but probably the most fascinating one was building around 20 nanometer transistor in ceramic material. So amazing engineering and scientific adventure, but kind of industry-wise or business-wise, it's quite useless. You cannot beat the silicon today. And then the break point came. I had to continue in the academic career and apply for tenure track or professorship. And in fact, I didn't. I didn't apply at all because I saw that I saw what it means. It means to stop doing basically the hands-on work actually on the devices, on the experiments. And this is something I was not willing to sacrifice. And at the same time, you kind of realize, come on, each time in each project, you just were doing completely new stuff. There was no original guidance. You just have to build a device which has never existed before. And you just realize that all these skills are made by people like you and me, and you need certain budget. So I wanted to continue in building, let's say, the real things which are useful to people. I should maybe summarize it more here that, you see in academic career, you know that often you work on the fundamental science, which brings few fruits, but usually after very long incubation period, far in the future, and often the contribution to it is the chance that you contribute to it is very small. So fortunately, science is often done for the fun of doing the science. But I saw my skills more appropriate for really applying the knowledge which was already acquired in the past in the science. So the applied science and building, I would say, many small fruits sooner. And there is enormous amount of knowledge and technology knowledge which still was not applied in the favor of society or people's daily life. And this was my space. And in fact, I was exploring a lot of potential projects already during the research career, which was again out of the field, which I was doing. So there was actually no other way to pursue what I want to do apart from doing it independently. And here, typically, you can see how people try to make a, let's say, independent project or business, and often start from doing something really complex because you just know how to do that. And this is I saw many times in the research as well. So this appears to be very often very bad idea to start. It's in fact not really innovation often. So what's much better is to solve problem that actually matters. And often the solution requires, available skill, available technology, 5% of what you can do. And this is what can bring much more benefit to society. And I typically don't show, let's say, this slide or don't speak about what is in this slide, but here I think I can afford it. It's, let's say, representative way I look at the world to judge whether something is innovative and makes sense to do and may have a value in the business or in general for the society. So it's not just how I see it, it's the fact that the world is a thermodynamic system, and our role in it as a living creature is to funnel the energy to our benefit, to survival and reproduction, and secondarily to comfort and security. And what can we do better is to find more energy sources, which we do all the time, or convert the energy more efficiently by making tools and engines as amplifiers of our own muscles, or levers as our own muscles. And if you look at what's the most important tool which we have, is the most bizarre of the tools. It's our ability to communicate in a very sophisticated way. It's bizarre because it is abstract. It's not a physical thing. And if you think about it a little bit, you will realize that without ability to communicate, we would be quite unremarkable creature, right? Imagine yourself just alone. So here, our communication tools, which culminated today with the smartphone, which is absolutely amazing device. You can just connect to anybody on the other side of the planet, or it, in some way, it thinks for you. It gives you access to our shared memory and so on. So, and the last part of it is, well, look at the history and you will see the projection where it goes. In a certain moment, you can be sure that the smartphone is actually not the last communication device we have. It would be the same like the thing that the telegraph or book printing was the last communication device. So there will be devices after smartphone. And what is it? Well, the first thing which comes up in mind is to, of course, communicate directly with the brain. And the best way to do it, in fact, is through the eyes. Sorry, it's here. Because if you have the glasses which project images into your eyes, it's basically delivering the digital data to the highest bandwidth input to our brain, the eyes. Like 85% of all information from outside to our brain comes through the eyes. And at the same time, it can mix with the real information from the real world. So the connection to our shared mind, which is all the internet and all the supercomputers, can be much more seamless. But in fact, billion-dollar companies are working on augmented reality devices. So where is the problem to solve? And for me, the problem came already a very long time ago, like in 2014, when the virtual reality was coming as a big promise of entirely new experiences and new tool which can help us to design and train and so on. But what came instead was a very big disappointment. The experience was unpleasant, was annoying, and I realized later that I'm more sensitive than other people to it. And I knew why there is the problem, why it is unpleasant. Because the eyes cannot behave normally. They cannot change focus because the image which you see is a flat. And this is the moment I realized that this would be much bigger problem for augmented reality, because you see also the reference objects, such as your own hands. So what we would like to see in augmented reality is something like this, the vibrant and crisp digital images in your own hands. But what you get instead today is a blurred potato. And this is not a problem of too low display resolution or too bad optics. This is a problem of fundamentally wrong way of displaying 3D imagery. And you may experience it on your own eyes if you try a small experiment together with me. So if you close one eye and look at this text over your hand, like I do right now, you will notice that you can't focus at both of them at the same time. So you can read either the text or see your hand. And this is a massive problem for augmented reality, because practically all display systems and all devices you can buy just magnify flat image in front of you. So two of them provide the illusion of depth due to our stereoscopic vision, but each one eye sees a flat image in fixed focal distance, which is not natural for our vision. So what we need to do is an image which is like genuine representation of how light exists in the real world, something like a hologram. But that's quite difficult, right? So when I realized there is this problem, I was looking at who is solving the problem. Not so much like that I would like to do a business out of it, but more like, okay, when is it coming? Who is solving the problem? And I didn't find any practical solution. It was either too complex or delivering too poor image. And I was investing more and more time and effort to exploring it until one moment, which I remember until today, so full day of testing and simulation, when I realized at 3 a.m. That yes, this is the idea, this is the eureka moment. I have the system which should work simply and well. Started building prototype, quit the job, and applied for a patent, first patent. And at this moment, I thought I am 99% done. Well, the reality is that I will just incorporate a company and start selling basically the know-how to producers. Well, I was wrong. The reality is that I was maybe in 1 promille of the journey. You need to get money to build a team, to improve the technology. No one will just take it and finish it for you. You have to do all by yourself. It's enormous amount of presentation, convincing people that this makes sense. People may not have the same opinion on it as you, and so on. And most importantly, what you don't realize at the beginning, that when you make a startup, it's almost like building a new culture without knowing this is the task. Because if you don't have a team which shares certain common values, have the same vision, and behave and functions as one family, you will probably fail. And so there was this very new, very social aspect of doing things. And startup is about it, I would say, from 90%. I've often heard this, presentations on what is a startup and the pathetic phrases on the culture and DNA inside. Well, you realize it's really true that it is like that. So now we are 20 people in the facilities with around 250 square meters. We have beautiful holography labs. We became number 4 in the most prestigious ranking of Swiss startups this year. We raised $16 million so far, and we are indeed selling the technology already. And what is it about? So we are called CREAL or CREAL because we make the natural display of augmented reality. So here I would like to show you our promo visualization video from already 2017, which shows how augmented reality should look like, but it doesn't, and what light field enables. So just pay attention to that changing focus. You need to focus close or far and see the associated blur correctly. And only later, the media started writing that light field is the holy grail of augmented reality, one of the most transformative display technologies since the invention of TV. And we sneaked into media as the closest thing to the real light field. So, and this is what we have today. It's a headset. It's not end-user product, but in many ways, it's a fully functioning augmented reality headset with all the tracking, hand tracking, spatial tracking, and so on. And this is what you see through it. So this is entirely authentic footage taken by a camera that is sitting behind the glass. There is no post-processing. This is what you see. And pay attention to that changing focus. So now the background is blurred, the hand is sharp, and the closer planets are in focus, including the panel. When you focus far, you see the correct change of sharpness and blur. And this is exactly what you cannot buy in any product on the market today. And we do it without any need for eye tracking or any feedback from the viewer. The depth, the focal depth is already baked in the projected light. Here are just some still photos showing that you can read the text in your hand, which is normally not possible if you do it with the other products on the market. And here you see the change of focus. That's the value which our startup is selling. And I didn't mention it, we have currently a team which are of veterans from augmented reality projects at Intel Wound, the smallest smart glasses so far, and Magic Leap, which actually left the teams and joined us. And together we are building or squeezing the projection technology to this form factor of glasses. And because it is quite difficult business-wise to do product for market which doesn't exist yet, we just realized that a subsection or subset of what we are doing is already applicable for different use cases, like in the vision care and virtual reality. So we have built those virtual reality headset as well. And this is, again, entirely unique device because it combines the high resolution light field image in the center. So you can see the changing focus now on the pressure bottle and later again back on the dashboard. Again, feature which you don't see in any product on the market. It's practically retinal resolution image, and the periphery is lower resolution, but that's because our eyes have lower resolution there as well. So again, here you can see the change of focus from the dashboard to the camera outside. And this is again the effect which is happening now in the camera, but when you have it on your head, it is happening in your eye only. So again, here you can see the resolution that you can read the text, which is again not the case of most of the products on the market, and the change of focus. And last but not least, because this is still very difficult business and market, we realized that the light field, because it can form the light as if it was coming from the real world, we can also transform the light, which means that we can simulate the function of lenses entirely digitally. And this has enormous value for vision care because if you are doing any vision test, you are still looking through devices which look like 100 years old machines, and we can do that entirely digitally. So that's where we are today, and I think I'm almost out of my time, and I don't have any conclusion slide. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Thomas. This was very interesting, actually. So it was really great. Okay, well, so yeah, you are perfectly in time, and we have now 10 minutes for questions. So there are already some questions happening. I wanted to start with one question, actually, from myself. That is, you say that you already are selling this this technology, right? Without giving us any kind of trade secrets or anything. What kind of customers do you have?
Yeah, those are typically producers of devices. So if you have it in vision care, these are producers of vision care devices. So if you do go to your optician or optometrist, you can just read the names on their machines. In virtual reality, these are the companies often with the healthcare, because the need there is the biggest. You can benefit, the training saves you a lot of money and time in the healthcare. You cannot cut always a human body. They are cutting pigs, in fact, I didn't know that. And the last one is, of course, the usual suspects in consumer electronics business, because they are working on the augmented reality devices with the vision that it will be our everyday tool in everything from cooking to neurosurgery, and we want to be part of it.
Cool. Oh, this is super interesting. Okay, so then now I'm going to go to the questions of the audience, right? So the first one is like, if you could tell us exactly how long this transition process was since the moment that you decided to just go out of the field and start this thing until you were like settled.
Well, it didn't have any really sharp transition point, but you incline more and more to that, decision that I will do the startup. But I showed certain timeline. There was like in 2014, I realized that there will be moment I will have to do what my professors are doing if I stay in the academic career. And I was totally scared about that. Just writing and reading and promising and defending miracles. And this is what totally scared me. And I started then working on practical realization of a couple of ideas. I had a whole list of ideas, very wide range, really, from like advertisement to just the technology. And I think in 2016, because I saw that the prototype actually works really well, that was the moment of decision. So it works actually way better than I was expecting. And the reason is, in fact, that we think how good the eyes are. When you really do the test, you will realize how terrible sensor the eye is. It's the brain which creates the illusion of that high resolution image around us. And in fact, you need very little to project to the eye to make the sensation. You just have to do it right. Okay, I'm not answering any more your question. So it was the moment when the prototype was
cool. Well, I think that's a great answer. Also, it's kind of nice to also like explain how this is not necessarily like a today, tomorrow change black and white. There is some kind of a process that is a little bit more organic that one will think when you are always in the same field. So that's very nice. And actually, following up a little bit on that, since you started the company until you started like expanding and getting, you said that you have 20 people in the team, right? So do you see this growing even more, or do you think you have achieved a size that is already like, let's say, the final one? How do you see the future?
Yeah, well, I should say there is a big dilemma because 20 people is perfect size for a startup. It's still a tribe, it's a band, but we are not really catching up with the opportunities, and we are planning to now double the team again. We were actually doubling the team initially every 6 months. Pandemic slowed it down, but not much.
Cool. I think that's really nice. Why am I taking notes while I tend to do these things? All right, cool. So another question could be, like, if you have any advice for somebody that is thinking like, oh, I may jump out of the field, try to realize this idea. What do you think, what you would have told yourself when you decided to start moving towards this direction? That could be a good advice.
Yes. Well, the first thing is really don't be afraid. There is a big hunger for people which are willing to try, really. So there is no problem to start. I think the first place you will go, which is involved in supporting startups, they will grab your hand, push you here and there, give a training or introduce you to investors. There is a really big hunger because innovation has enormous value. It's a huge positive sum lottery. There's a big risk involved, of course, but a few successful projects return everything back super generously. There is in fact like 20% return, which no other thing gives you in average if you have enough money. And so I would just do it. But the other part of this question, the advice would be really solve a problem. It doesn't have to be complicated. It should be unique, of course. You just see the problem which other people don't see. Later, you will realize that 100 people are working on it anyway. But at least at the beginning, you should really think that unique thing. And look at some very successful projects in the past. I really like the light bulb. Everybody associates light bulb to Edison, but in fact he didn't invent light bulb. He just made it practical and make all the infrastructure around. Transistor in some way was also not original by Bell Labs. And the same as all the search engines and social networks were not first ones as well. So just sometimes you have to do it better, and sometimes you have to do completely different things, which people don't know yet they will need.
Cool. Well, I think that's nice advice. All right, and I think we're gonna close it with this last one, and this last one comes from me again. So my question is, like, from your time at CERN, what is the thing that you remember with like the most fondness?
Most fondness? What does it mean?
What do you remember with more nostalgia? What is your favorite time at CERN?
Yeah, okay, there is the professional part of it, which is you go to the pit and you see the detector and you do wow, even when you are there, 50 time. That's so impressive, simply. That's so insanely impressive that I recommend it to everybody. And of course, there is a very amazing group of people with which I was working and living in the office. It was a little bit, like living in a desert or on different planet because you are really locked with the group of and don't socialize much outside. So, but yeah, amazing.
Cool. All right. So I think that's actually quite nice, and I can relate to that 100%. So thank you very much, Tomas. It was really nice to have you. I think your presentation was very interesting, and well, thank you very much, really, for telling us about your career and your company. So thank you.
For moderating it. And